What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 86 of the Lost Media Podcast. Today we're talking about 5 fascinating lost animated films. One of these was lost previously and then became found, and the other 4 are almost completely lost, aside from a few being deemed partially found. One of these was halfway through production allegedly, and nobody found out what happened with it. It just got cancelled. And the other one was, well, existence non-existent. It was deemed to never be started, and although the person who created it said we were going to do it, it just never even began. So without further ado, let's begin with A Tin Toy Christmas. This was the original version of Toy Story before they made it, well, Toy Story. And this was a Christmas special that was going to be based on the original Pixar short Tin Toy. And it was never made because it was just too much cost for Pixar at the time. They were almost going to go broke, and it was just never going to be made realistically with the amount of money Pixar was worth and the amount of success this was going to get. It wasn't deemed to be a great idea, so they didn't go ahead with it. And a lot of people have speculated over the years, is there a lot of production material done with this? But I'm guessing no, because Pixar was just nothing back then. They did make that awesome short in 1988 that was just Tin Toy, which was pretty impressive for its time. But trying to turn that into a feature-length film or even a Christmas special was going to be pretty difficult. And with the Tin Toy Christmas, they were going to do that because that was pretty much the only idea they had at the time, just to expand on their short that they made. And they decided against it, and they were like, you know what? Let's go for an actual feature-length film. And it took another 6 years after this was meant to come out. I think this was meant to be released in Christmas 1989, but they just didn't have the time or the resources at the time to do this. So Tin Toy was shelved forever, never to be released. The second one is Where the Wild Things Are. This is an original novel from the 1960s that was tried so many times to be adapted. I really struggle with that word, into a movie, and it just never happened. Well, it did in 2009, but that was live action. They were trying to do the animated one so many times. They were actually trying to use 2D models that rendered into 3D and were like real life perspectives moving around. That was the 1983 version that John Lasseter started, and it just didn't work out. It was just too difficult to make. He was working on all sorts of different things to do with it, but nobody knows how far he got into it before they pulled the plug. There is animation tests that do still exist that are playing behind me, but that's all there is to it. They did try this in the 1960s and 1970s with very little success, and there's not a lot of information on those attempts, but there is information on the 2001 DreamWorks attempt. This is around the time they would have been making Shrek or finishing Shrek, and they decided to start with Where the Wild Things Are. Apparently half of the movie was finished and animated, but it was unfinished, obviously. Only one half done, and then they pulled the pin on it and said, this isn't going to make us money and this isn't going to be successful. And the animation for this concept was notoriously difficult, and everyone wanted to make it this really impressive feat because the book is so impressive. So trying to animate a story like this is very difficult and hard to adapt to a film, and they just went against it every single time. So it's quite bizarre for a movie to have that many attempts and then they just go nah and pull the pin. The third one I want to talk about is Aaahh! Real Monsters the movie, and this is the one I talked about in the intro for being non-existent. They were going to make this, but they never started any production material or any ideas or anything to do with it. It was based on the TV show Aaahh! Real Monsters, and there was internet forums saying it was made or it was going to be made and they were halfway through production, but it was deemed way too dark. None of these are true. Maybe the way too dark theme is true, partially, but it was just different production companies taking over at the time, and that was what stopped it from being an idea into production. It was just a little idea they came up with towards the end of the series. Why don't we finish this thing off with a bang and actually make a movie based on the series? But it just didn't happen because the production company taking over, obviously at the time, I think it was Paramount, was intended to make money. They really wanted to make a lot of money out of all their obviously animated movies or anything they were putting together to the big screen. and Are Real Monsters, a show that recently ended, presumably due to low ratings. That's usually why shows ended at the time. It just wasn't feasible for them to make money. It's what movies are all about, unfortunately, and that's what I'm going to talk about in future podcasts coming up. How movies didn't get made because there were really clever ideas, and the other people working at the studios just wanted money, essentially, and so their really unique ideas never went to the big screen. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the electric piper. I'm sure you guys have known about this for years. This was found in 2016 by Stuart Ismay. The same person who found this movie actually mirrored one of my videos in the past once, which is pretty cool. When I was researching this on the Lost Media Wiki, I recognized the name and I clicked on it, and it took me to the YouTube channel, the guy who mirrored one of my update videos. I think it was like a 30-second update video, and uploaded it as an unlisted video. And I've still got that, so I could probably link that in the description. Really interesting, but yet irrelevant to the topic. A piece of electric piper. He found the movie and uploaded it online, but for quite a while, I think for a good year, people were searching for this and really wanted to see it. It's about a kid. I think his name is Jimmy. I'm not sure. It was based on the show The Pied Piper, a Nickelodeon show. And he creates music with his electric guitar that drives away all the rats from the town. So he does a really honorable thing, and all of a sudden the town's freed of vermin. And the town's mayor just pretends he didn't do it and doesn't give him any credit. So he gets pissed off and apparently takes all the kids of the town along with him on a musical journey of sorts. You can correct me in the comments, guys, if I've completely butchered the plot. That's what I think it is, presumably. The movie was lost, as I said, for about a year and a bit. It was an internet mystery and everyone wanted to see it. And then it was uploaded in 2016. Not sure when in 2016 off the top of my head. I've said this in previous podcasts. If you're just joining, this is a podcast. It's all filmed in one go. They're notoriously difficult to film when I'm trying to remember dates, because I try not to do them with notes and I just want to do them all in one go off memory. To prove that I'm a lost media dude, I guess you could say. Been making these videos technically since I was like 17, but stopped for several years. So we'll get to the final one, and this is the most interesting one in my opinion, Garfield's Judgment Day. This was not made because it was too dark, and there was like 5 to 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes of animation done, and it was never finished because the people that were in charge that were going to air this to television were just like, nah. Now, I know I've written in the title 5 fascinating lost animated films. This is technically a film. I mean, it's a TV special, but I wanted to include it as the last entry because this is the first thing I think I've ever found recently. There's got to be a lot of other ones. There was an animated feature of sorts that was cancelled for being too dark for Garfield. They had done a lot of Garfield TV specials, and they're mostly for families and kids, obviously. But Garfield is a cat with attitude, of course. But this one was going a bit too far. It was based on a tornado hitting the town and all hell breaking loose. And everyone thought it was too confronting, what Jim Davis was trying to come up with for this. It was eventually turned into a picture book, but he wanted this to be his grandest work for Garfield and his best thing he ever did with the character, and something really, really cool. And they were just like, yeah, you know what? Nah. And he was just hell-bent on making this thing happen. Like, he tried several more times, I think 2 or 3 more times, to get this thing made. And nobody wanted to sign off on it because the brand of Garfield was, known to make money for safe and marketable shorts and stuff that was non-creative. And this is his best work and his, the coolest thing he made to do with the show, because it was probably pushing the boundaries of Garfield of what's okay. And they're just like, nah, what you've done previously makes us money, so we don't want this to ever be released. We don't want to jeopardize our intellectual property. So very disappointing for Jim Davis that he could never get this one signed off. And he's actually my second uncle, Jim Davis. I had to mention, no, he's not. There's like millions of Davises around the world. Fucking stupid shit to say. Yeah, I'm just fascinated in entries of Lost, anything Lost, but especially animated stuff that's deemed too dark for the property or the show that it's being based on, and that's why they couldn't air it. And that's why this TV special, not a film, Garfield's Judgment Day, was added to this list, and why it's really interesting. I'm sorry I don't know more about the plot. You can look it up on the Lost Media wiki. I'll include that in the description. Yeah, there's no footage of this that exists anywhere. There's like voice acting reels, I think, that will be playing behind me, that exist to do with Garfield's Judgment Day, but the animated footage that was done has never been released, and I don't think it can be released due to copyright stuff and Garfield being associated with so much shit that makes money. I don't think Jim Davis can release it. But yeah, not much was done because they refused to fund something that was slightly controversial or was slightly too scary for kids. Yeah. The long and the short of this, in fact, the lesson from today's Lost Media podcast, from today's list video, 5 fascinating lost animated films. Please subscribe, for God's sakes, and like the video. Oh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? You're not supposed to make people like, if you enjoyed it so far, guys, do that. The lesson today is everything is cancelled because they're worried that it's not going to make enough money and it's going to be too creative, too controversial. So the lesson is only focus on money and making money, and don't focus on anything creative and clever and fun. Yeah, only money. Don't focus on any passion projects, especially if you own, or if you're the person who created an intellectual property that you don't fully own. You've got no hope. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Some things in this list, like Where the Wild Things Are, way too costly. So cost does come into it, even though they were trying to be creative. But yeah, most of these are not going to make enough money, so they won't be released, except Electric Piper, which was just lost because it was never given a home media release and aired on Nickelodeon like a handful of times, or less than a handful of times, like 3 or 2 times. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching episode 86, I believe, of the Lost Media podcast. I'm going to lose track of this eventually. One episode, I'm going to name the wrong title number. I hope not. I've been trying my absolute hardest. His podcast has been going since April 10. I'm recording this on June 29th, but this will be uploaded in July. And there's 86 episodes. So you can imagine I'm going to pump out a lot of episodes coming soon. I said that I'd be uploading Tuesday to Friday and then every single weekday. And I didn't do that yesterday, I think it was. Yeah. That's just because I was still trying to plan out my schedule. Sorry about that, guys. I replied to people in the comments saying that's what I was going to do. And I said it at the end of the previous podcast, but it didn't happen. So I'm trying to get to episode 96 or 97, I think it is, and then see where we're going to go with the podcast from there and the YouTube channel. And I've mentioned that I want to do short commentaries, 5 to 6 minutes every fortnight, along with the podcast, so you get more well-edited stuff and you don't just get me talking for 10 minutes unedited virtually, except for what's in the background. Yeah, I want to expand this channel, but I started it with 100 podcasts, or nearly 100 podcasts, if you include the ones that weren't released that are in the description of episode 1. I started it with that so I could just get this channel rolling and see if Lost Media is still something people want to watch, and it is. So that's awesome. Yeah, I'll be back with a lot of animated stuff, a lot of Disney animated stuff before I stop at episode 96 or 97. I hope you guys enjoy those entries. And I do want to do more passion projects and more stuff that people suggest in the comments. So please suggest your things, whatever Lost Media you want to suggest. And thank you guys so much for watching once again. I'm really enjoying doing this, but I got to be honest, after 86 episodes, I am getting to the end of, for like a week and a bit, or for a week of recording these. I've had to schedule it in a really clever way to be able to keep going with these for this long, with this many episodes. Like I said in the previous one, I'm averaging 1.2 or 1.3 podcasts per day since April 10. And you get to a point like I did today in this recording where it actually took me 20 plus takes, somewhere between 20 and 30 takes to do the intro to this podcast. So that's why YouTubers burn out, and that's why they need a rest. But I'm going to end this one. Thanks for watching, guys. I've got more episodes coming soon. They're really interesting, I swear. Thank you, guys. The end. Goodbye. What was that? Like, what am I doing? What do I do with my hands?
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Be good just to hold them down by your side. Yeah, great.